Solving equations with grouping symbols. In the previous video, we dealt with the simplest types of equations because we only had to deal with isolating x by undoing what happened to x. These problems are slightly more difficult because we have to actually worry about the first step in solving any equation, which is simplifying. And what simplifying means is when there are parentheses, we want to first distribute, and then we will deal with combining like terms as well. They're not too much more difficult, there's just more steps in the beginning. So exercise 1, we have 9 equals 3 times 5x minus 2. So because there is a parentheses, what we want to do is we want to distribute the 3 that's in front of the 5x minus 2. So on the left-hand side, we simply have 9 equals, now 3 times 5x is 15x, and then 3 times negative 2, because do be very careful, is negative 6. Probably the most common mistake is to not pay attention to negative signs. So do make sure that you are showing every single step of work and you are accounting for negative signs. Now from here, the problem is exactly like the previous video. Note that if I want to write out the operations, first we have this multiplication by 15. And then secondly, we have this subtraction by 6. So for us, we want to undo. And so writing down the problem, we have 9 equals 15x minus 6. First, we undo the subtraction by 6 by adding 6 to both sides, which gives us 15 equals 15x. And then next we undo the multiplication by 15 by dividing both sides by 15. So on the left-hand side we have 1, and on the right-hand side we have x. And then let's go ahead and check our answer, which we can do by plugging in x into the original problem. So 9 equals 3 times 5 times x, but x is now replaced with 1 because we're plugging it in to check. On the left-hand side, we have 9, and on the right-hand side, we have 3 times 5 times 1. Well, 5 times 1 is 5 minus 2. Okay, on the right-hand side, this turns into 3 times 3, and then this reduces to 9. And so the left-hand side and the right-hand side are equal, and so our solution is correct. Moving on to part B, we have 6 times x minus 4 minus 2x equals 24. So our first step is to simplify the parentheses by distributing. So 6 times x is 6x. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. Minus 2x equals 24. Now, from here, notice that I have multiple x terms on the left-hand side. In order for us to start talking about what's happening to x, we need to combine these terms so that we only have one term with an x in it. So if you think about it, if we have 6 x's and we have negative 2 x's, how many do I really have? Well, it's kind of like if you have 6 apples and we take away 2, then you have 4 left. So combining like terms means that these are like terms that can be combined into one single term. Okay, and then the negative 24 on the left-hand side we didn't do anything with yet, and then we have the 24 on the other side. At this point, I'm not going to write out all the words in terms of what the operation is doing anymore. Remember that the goal is to get x by itself. And so we will first add 24 to both sides, leaving us with 4x on the left-hand side, and that gives us 48 on the right-hand side. Now from here, we want to get x by itself. We need to get rid of that 4. So we'll divide both sides by 4, leaving us with x equals 12. Moving on to part C, we have 20 equals 5y minus 3 times 4 minus y. Okay, so same thing like before. We want to distribute. So on the left-hand side, we simply have 20 equals, nothing to do with the 5y yet. And here's where we need to be careful. Notice that there's a subtraction sign in front of the 3. So really, we're not multiplying by 3. We are multiplying by negative 3. So negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. And then negative 3 times negative y is positive 3y. And this is what I meant. Right now, all of a sudden, the problems have a lot of negative signs. It's very easy to make a careless mistake, particularly if you're rushing or you're not showing all of your work. From here, notice that I have a 5y and I have a 3y. So we do want to combine these terms together. So we have 20 on the left-hand side equals, how many y's do I have? Well, I have 5y and I have a 3y. Combining those together gives us 8y minus 12. And now that we have a single y term, we can get the y by itself. So first, we'll undo the subtraction of 12 by adding 12 to both sides, giving us 32 equals 8y. And then dividing both sides by 8 gives us 4 is equal to y. Okay. Lastly, we have 6x minus 3x minus 8 equals 16. Now, this question isn't particularly difficult, but it does trick a lot of people because of the placement of the negative sign. Whenever you don't see a number like this, there is an invisible 1 that math people are not too lazy to write. But there is a 1 that's in front of that parentheses. And because there's a negative sign, it's really an invisible negative 1. Now, once you understand that there's an invisible negative 1 here, the problem itself isn't very difficult to do. Because now we're going to distribute the negative 1 into the parentheses. So we have on the left-hand side 6x. Negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. And then negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8 equals 16. Okay, so now that we've distributed, we check for like terms to combine. And we do have like terms to combine. We have the 6 and we have this negative 3. So how many x's do I really have? Well, 6 minus 3 is 3. X plus 8 equals 16. And from here, we will subtract 8 from both sides to get rid of that positive 8. So on the left-hand side, that's 3x. And on the right-hand side, we have 8. Now we need to undo the 3 that's being multiplied. And we'll do that by dividing both sides by 3. And this gives us x equals 8 over 3. Note that the answer does not have to be a whole number. it can be a fraction.